either fear of being in relationships, worry about whether or not people will be committed in a relationship. And that's just kind of one of the themes that's been coming up a lot lately. So usually that's how we come up with our topics, is that we just kind of look at what people have been talking about, asking questions about, and decide that maybe then that's the thing that we can share and open a forum about. And we also do a survey, and cheating won over boundaries. So
that's exactly right. And the second piece, Chris, you failed to mention is once we come up with the topic or the theme, we have to come up with a rhyme for the catchy marketing aspect. So Chris is notoriously, we come up with a topic, and a theme or a topic, and we have to like run it through the rhyme, figure out the rhyming. All our topics you'll see, from the vulnerability paradox to the narcissism, there's always a tagline that's kind of rhyming, thanks to Chris.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I can't let it go now. It started off as kind of a joke. Kev usually sends very interesting, in-depth, TED Talk-esque worthy topics. And then I'm like, but cheating and leaving and scheming and fleeting, we need something like that. And we land on something that might be a little bit more elementary, but rhymes and is catchy. But the point remains the same, which is when we look at cheating and people's kind of various responses to it, is there a right or wrong? Is there one that does not really kind of benefit us? And we're not saying we have the answer, which is why we're in conversation. We're just opening up for discussion.
Great. So here we are at 5 minutes in.
Okay.
Diane is coming back. I think we're still recording. Yeah. So why don't we go ahead and begin? So welcome all to the coach and the therapist in conversation. Cheating, staying or leaving is one more self-defeating. Glad you're able to join. We're happy that we can do this, and like Chris just mentioned, have this conversation, open dialogue. We encourage your comments. We encourage your questions. We like to talk about things we hope are beneficial to the audience. And like Chris mentioned, it kind of starts her and I just talking about things from a therapist point of view and a coach point of view. I think Charmaine and Natalie know me as the coach and Chris as the therapist. Barbara, I don't know, Barbara, you probably might be familiar, but I am the coach, the dating and relationship coach. And Chris, you are
I'm the therapist. Yes. Hey, y'all. Thanks everybody for joining. We know it's an interesting time, the 1 o'clock slot, but we're gonna roll with it. And as Kev mentioned, this is a very open, safe space to share. One of the things we've enjoyed so much about doing this so far is that people are open about their experiences and the questions that they have.
Great. So let's jump right in. Chris, yep. I don't know, you may want to open up with some general thoughts. I'll give you the chance. What were your thoughts as you pondered this topic? Because I definitely, put some thoughts together, and I'll let you start first.
I think what I was really thinking about is that the way that we see relationships, I don't know that the perspective has evolved, but I think that there is so much more kind of conversation around open relationships, around being, poly versus kind of just you and this one person forever. And so I think even as we talk about kind of the idea of cheating, we have to look at kind of the relationship that you're in, the person who you are with. What is kind of what is the setup that y'all agreed to, right? Did you agree to something kind of prior to entering into whatever the thing is? And so if the idea of commitment for the two of you is it's only you and the other person, and that's the best way to kind of honor your relationship and grow with each other rather, then cheating also means something very interesting, whether it's emotionally kind of stepping out and or physically stepping out. If you're involved in a situation where other people are allowed in and out, but there are certain rules around that, right? Then cheating is going to be kind of defined in a slightly different way. Then it's not even really cheating, right? if the teacher, calls you into class and you have a test and suddenly they say, oh no, the test today is open book. Then when I open my book, I'm not cheating. I'm following the rules. The test is open book. If I'm in a relationship where we both decided that we can step out, but that maybe those other people only get kind of certain access to us, or we only share certain things with them, the level of intimacy is more about physical and nothing else, then that's a different kind of setup. So one of the questions to really look at is, if you are in relationship with, how do the two of you define the parameters of your relationship?
Yeah, that makes total sense. If I understand you right, Chris, is basically defining what does cheating mean for us, right? And understanding what that is, and then kind of evaluating and communicating as things arise in the relationship. And my thoughts as I pondered the topic was envisioning, in a relationship, you're basically building a bridge. You're an individual, they're an individual, and you're building this bridge. And depending, how much you align on values and interests, the bridge may have to be shorter or longer, right?
Yeah.
And that bridge takes time to build, that relationship, to get to the point where you get to marriage. You build this bridge, and keep in mind that some people, you may have a long bridge because the chasm was very wide as to who they were and who you are and how you came together, right?
Yeah.
Now, storms are going to come. Our possibilities for damage, such as, let's say, cheating in this case, it's going to do damage to that bridge. And the question is, boy, we knew what it took to build it. Do I have it in me to repair the damages or rebuild it? And that's the question, you ask yourself. So if you met someone and you were highly aligned and things worked and the bridge was short to build because
sorry, Coach Kev. Sorry, everyone out there.
That's all right.
Allergies. The bridge.
Bless you.
Thanks.
Yeah, but if the bridge was short and the chasm was small between the two of you, boy, maybe, you can decide, what? It's worth rebuilding this bridge or repairing the damages because the divide wasn't so big to begin with, versus I knew going in this was going to be tough. And because of that toughness, maybe it caused some challenges such as infidelity. And now, given the factors involved, do I want to stay or leave? That's kind of how I framed it up in my thoughts. I don't know. What do you think about that, Chris?
I think you bring up something interesting because when you brought up the idea of the bridge, right, it made me think of kind of what was the foundation. What is your relationship built on, right? So if, for example, there's been kind of a long-term stressor that's occurred that could not have been accounted for example, and this has caused a lack of communication, a lack of intimacy, a lack of connection. But you can almost kind of pinpoint, man, if we just kind of had conversations around this, but we got so busy trying to fix this other thing that our relationship suffered. We didn't kind of come towards each other in the trying to solve this thing or this disruption, where we kind of both isolated, went our own ways and trying to fix this thing. You're like, oh, okay, this led to this. You might still not have wanted it to happen. It's a break of trust. You might decide, man, even if we kind of solve this, it is a long time coming back to one another, because that's the one thing that maybe you thought wasn't going to be broken, despite hard times, right? But sometimes when you really can kind of point to the thing, and this is kind of the one incident that's occurred, and it happens once, and it's, all those things, then you might find it's worth it to stay. Is it a one-off, or is it a pattern? Is this something that is kind of allowing you to see something in your partner that you just didn't recognize before? As a space of kind of dishonesty that they operate from, and maybe in that case you do need to go, So I think there are a lot of dynamics that have to be considered when this does occur, which is why it's so important to, that's why we're saying stay or leave. In one case, maybe staying and really working through kind of does make sense, and the relationship prior to that, to your point about kind of the bridge and foundation, warrants that. Maybe the cheating, on the other hand, is more of the cry of like, blah, 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 you knew this was not the thing, and now here it is smacking you upside your head. It is not the thing for you, right? And it's kind of maybe the thing that will provide the catalyst for another person to actually exit a situation maybe that is not beneficial to them.
Yeah, definitely makes sense. I think to also acknowledge that, cheating itself can be, truly devastating in relationships. And in hearing people speak about it, it causes a lot of pain and mistrust. And, the severity, depending on what it may trigger for someone, given what they've already been through, what they've witnessed in, relationships around them. Like you said, there's so many dynamic pieces and factors, and I think that all contributes. So, it's not an easy thing. It's like a case by case for individuals, right? To some degree.
Yeah. What have you seen before? Is your sense of normalcy around what a relationship is that people do step out?
Mm-hmm.
There might be a different response for you then. It might still hurt, but you might be kind of more willing to be like, okay, blind eye, let's just keep this unit going. You know what I mean? That can be the case. But I was trying to think, I was like, gosh, it is so involved because there's so many reasons, there's so many layers to this. But I think at the root of it, and tell me what you think, Kev, it's kind of the word dissatisfaction comes to mind. And I don't necessarily mean dissatisfaction, oh, the passion just kind of slowly died in our relationship. And so I went to look for something else, right? It could be that the person who is doing the cheating is feeling dissatisfied within themselves. There is something that is missing for them that has absolutely nothing to do with the partner, right? Sometimes you find one partner kind of restless or constantly searching for a feeling of affirmation or a feeling of meaning, or that they initially maybe kind of grabbed onto from the partner and that now they no longer experience, and so they're out kind of seeking for that feeling again. Sometimes the dissatisfaction is either a sexual incompatibility or a kind of dying down of the passion and then without conversation. Sometimes the dissatisfaction is in an overall relationship that started kind of one way, and both people held on to the idea of what they thought it was going to be at the start. And then as daily life kind of kicks in and the relationship is not that way, to your point about the bridge again, do you then have conversation even if it's hard? Or are you so scared about bringing up kind of your fears, your concerns about the relationship that you don't say anything, but distance continues to grow because of that? And then stepping out seems easier, or emotionally becoming connected with someone else seems much easier until you're not talking with your partner about the things that you used to. Or there's a recognition that you never really kind of got the response that you wanted from them to begin with. But instead of ending it, right, you step out. Or we don't believe the thing is as good as it feels like it can be. And so then the stepping out occurs as more of a sabotaging.
Yeah. Let me piggyback on that. I see a question from Diane to everyone, but before we get to that, yeah, I think your point there with the dissatisfaction, what that comes to mind. It's really understanding the reasons behind the cheating. And that definitely would factor in, because if the reasons were I was dissatisfied or unfulfilled or seeking validation and not getting it, well, can that be addressed? Because if it can't be addressed and resolved, we're back at the same point that caused, the person, to say they wanted to cheat or they cheated, right? Yep. And the root cause are what underlying reasons triggered the need to cheat. If that can't be resolved for that person or for the relationship, then that kind of can give you some indication whether you should stay or leave, right? To some degree.
Right. That's when you're like, wait, was this a one-off or is this the pattern? Yeah. Whenever this person suddenly doesn't feel good with themselves, or they like start kind of searching again, and you'll find certain relationships are set up that way. One kind of style that occurs is called triangulation, where the relationship literally only works because it's the one person kind of never stays kind of satisfied enough in what they have. And so they venture out. And in the venturing out, they begin to feel a sense of freedom. They begin to feel less trapped. They begin to remember the things that they enjoyed about the person who's kind of the home base. And the venturing out is what allows them to return.
Mm-hmm.
They're only able to do that if the person who they're returning to does not object
Mm-hmm.
or objects and then realizes, oh, I don't want to lose them. Nobody else is really that serious to them. They always come back, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
that specific style of relationship, that person is cheating, returning, cheating, returning, cheating, returning. But they
Right.
can only do that if the person they're returning to permits this.
Yeah, or doesn't know, I guess, to some degree. But the notion that you kind of know sometimes, but that brings up an interesting point because I've been in situations where I've heard married people, specifically married men, say the reason my marriage works is because I do certain things to maintain my sanity, essentially infidelity, and that kind of works. Kid you not. And then I tease them. I'm like, it's kind of the Tiger Woods syndrome. I called it. When Tiger had his mistresses and he had his family and he had his golf, it was very successful.
Did you coin that? Are you gonna be in trouble for using that?
I'm just saying, when it got out of balance, the brother stopped winning at golf. So when his wife, I forgot her name, when she started to check him and say, oh no, this is not permissible, and I see Charmaine smiling, but literally I was thinking, stuff is out of whack. Kind of get into your triangulation. I mean, I was thinking that all along, and my thinking was Tiger could have cut the deal up front, saying, hey, the way that this golf works, I can succeed when I have my family, taken care of, but I gotta have these side chicks on the side. You know what I'm saying? That's how this golf works. It's a lot of stress. And I'm being facetious, but at the same time, your triangulation brought that thought, because I've heard men in private circles talk about, I can maintain my home and household and tolerate a lot more if I have this outlet. It's like a justification in a sense. And I believe the spouses know. They can tell, people can tell when something ain't right.
Yeah, I think that goes back to the kind of, this is our system, this is our home, he's winning, right?
Right.
Blind eye, I'm keeping the system in place. That does happen. And I think that even as you hear it coming from men, right, as a justification, there are women who step out too, I mean, listen, we can take this back, right? There used to be kind of like the families on one side and, the cat has another whole family on the other side of the tracks, right?
Right.
And so, this is in no way a new behavior, but it speaks to kind of what we're talking about at the core, at the root. What is the dissatisfaction that is causing this person to lean into this type of behavior to manage whatever is going on for them?
Yeah. Fair enough. I'm getting some funny comments.
Sorry, you said there was a question.
Somebody said that's wild. Well, yeah, Diane asked, what about the saying? We got sayings, the thoughts, ideas. Once a cheater, always a cheater. Is this still the case, or is it every situation different?
What do you think, Kev?
Can you rehab a cheater? Well, that's a good question. I mean, I think it starts with personal accountability. If somebody can't hold themselves accountable to whatever commitment and the stipulations of that commitment are, what they determine, I mean, then yeah, potentially always a cheater. But that's a question they have to individually answer for themselves. But yeah, that's a tough one. Once a cheater, I'm tending to, you burn me once, shame on you. You burn me twice, shame on me.
Shame on me.
Not that I wouldn't give a second chance, because I've been cheated on and it definitely hurt. And I did give a second chance, but it wasn't the same. I didn't feel the same.
What was different for you in terms of your feelings? Sorry.
Well, that's why I started with my metaphor of a bridge, because the bridge was damaged and I thought we could repair it, but foundationally it was rocked. It was like, boy, I don't see this bridge being, built the same way and being as, I was just shook. I mean, it hurt deeper than I expected. And so not until you try to see if you can forgive and I just couldn't, I kept it in the back of my mind and it ate me alive. Hence, she detected and called me
Yeah.
out on it and said, "You're not the same. You don't care about me the same, and I don't think you love me the same." And I honestly said yes. I mean, this is my early 30s when this occurred, but
Mhm.
it didn't scar me from, meeting anyone else. And second point before I let you comment, I meet people and I've had women share with me in my dating experiences that, hey, I'm divorced, I cheated, openly, honestly, tell me,
Mhm. Mhm.
but they also justify, we'll give it the reason. Here's what happened. Husband neglected me for a certain amount of time. So I went out and I thought, he was doing it. I recognized it was wrong. I think I'm always, as they share this, what am I feeling genuinely? And I feel empathetic that
Yeah.
you were in a situation where cheating was the way you had to go, and in some sense, and maybe you didn't have to go, but it doesn't affect me from wanting to get to know them, because I think we can all, make decisions that we're not proud of at some point,
Yeah.
and then, do better, know better.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that should you choose to say, and the foundation is stuff that it's warranted, and there are enough kind of concrete things a person can point to, and they really are accepting of responsibility.
Hmm.
Um, eh, then you might find that you decide to stay, but there is going to be kind of a lot of hard work. And I think that trust becomes so fragile and takes so long to rebuild,
Hmm.
that the couple also has to kind of be prepared for uh, like roller coasters, distance and not distance. Feel okay, then suddenly is a side eye. Like, oh, you really stick going where you said you're going? You know what? No, I thought I felt like being intimate. I have no desire to be connected to you at all. Because now I'm thinking about what you did, how painful that was. Um, so I think the journey, should you decide to stay, is one that is not as easy as okay, thanks for being honest. I mean, I'm hurt, but I'm sure we can move through this. No, it's not an easy one. It's not a quick fix. And I think um, that maybe is why sometimes people are just like, never mind, because you put in and you put in, you put in, and you don't feel any differently.
Yeah, no doubt. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. I see some comments. Let me start. I'm going to get to Natalie first. Diane asked, "Is this what happened to you again, Coach? Would you stay again?"
Dang, no, wait a
No,
minute.
if this happened to you again,
Diane
Coach,
with the messaging,
would
whoever this is, she's
would you stay
had you
again?
on blast.
Diane want to call me out, so I wanted to answer that first. If this happened to you again, Coach, would you stay again? Well, I'm a different person at this point, Diane, if you really must know. So at 30, how Coach Kev handled things and dealt with things is quite different than Coach Kev at, about to be 51. So I think yeah, hypothetically I could stay. But it's kind of getting back to our topic, right? I like my analogy or my metaphor of the bridge, and how much time did it take to build it? Where am I where's things at now? And what were their underlying reasons, and can we communicate and address those? And if I felt, boy, I was contributing and in some way or enabling by my behavior for her to say, you know what, I got to step out on Coach Kev, then I definitely would be more conscientious about what that meant, and see.
Part of the willingness to look at ourselves and
No,
our
right,
part that we might have played in the thing.
undoubtedly. So yeah, I might stay, but I wouldn't. I think when I stayed the last time, I didn't take any time to process what I was feeling.
Yep.
I didn't go to therapy. I didn't have anything. So the point I told about meeting women later in life and them sharing. I always wondered if it was going to trigger the fear of being cheated on, because I did not like the way that felt at that point in time. Here I was in love and I felt betrayed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So somebody's like,
I saw some
okay,
other comments.
I'm gonna go back to oh, we got a lot more people that joined. Let's see. I saw Casey. I think people can work through it and get to another space in their relationship. So
Mhm.
yeah, I agree with that. Charmaine, I like, you sharing there. It said it would never be the same. And that's definitely, Chris, I don't know if you had anything on that.
Yeah, well, what I was thinking was, it will never be the same. I know we talked about this before, and sometimes the disruption is the thing that finally actually allows the relationship and the people showing up in the relationship to be the way that they want it to be. So, depending on kind of what prompted the cheating in the first place, um, it could be that this disruption, which in this case is cheating, but right, could be a lot of other things, is the thing that finally opens up the conversation,
Mhm.
and kind of the honest communication that, though it still takes time, can kind of allow the entire relationship and the quality of the entire relationship to be very different. Not all the time, but just
Right.
sometimes disruptions, whatever they are, can be the thing that while awful moving through, actually allow for the relationship to flourish as it should have been. So no, it will never be the same. Now with cheating, often it means it will never be the same. Once again, you really went out for orange juice? We have orange juice right here in the fridge. Side eye, you know what I mean?
Right.
Go
Right.
to work late? Oh, you do? Like where everything is kind of questions, and rightfully so, because the trust has been broken. And so the reason why that is so horrific is that we have been moving through the world in our relationship feeling a certain sense of emotional and physical safety, feeling like, hey, our inner voice isn't leading us wrong. But
Mhm.
wait a minute, how did I miss this? Where was I that this could happen? And I didn't see any signs. I wasn't trying to ignore them. Like I don't, maybe there was a period where we felt a little separate, but not that would cause me to choose to do this. But it did. But my partner did, right?
Right. Makes sense. And then there's a different perspective. I see Casey, thanks for this comment. Definitely depends on the relationship. And she gives an example. She knows a couple where there was cheating in the early years of their marriage. And now 30 years later, they're traveling the world and happy and retired. So it may make things stronger. There's a possibility that, guess what?
Do
Given
they
this,
need someone to hang out with them on these travels? Just because I'm saying,
okay.
obviously the weather here is not good for my allergies. Y'all hear me sniffing.
Right.
saying.
Well, they don't need anybody trying to thwart their loving romantic relationship at this point. They've already had the 30-year ago incident, Chris. But
Casey just said they're happy with just the two of them. Okay, all
yeah,
right.
exactly.
Let me pull out my passport. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and I'm also cautious too. People post a lot of things, and they may not be as happy as we think, but we'll see. Natalie.
Oh, this is true, and I think that the key there was that she said she knows the couple.
Right.
Is that inside scoop? Whereas I think the danger is often in, if we're looking at kind of the curated image, our sense of what couplehood, is, or how
Mhm.
other people experience it, might also be the thing that we allow to kind of we cling on to as the thing that starts our own sense of restlessness, right? Like, look at them, they're always holding hands. Look at them, we don't know. They could have had the first handhold in 5 months after being annoyed with each other the whole time. Like,
Right.
you never know what the backstory is if you're just witnessing. But Casey had the inside scoop.
No doubt. I still want to get to Natalie now. Sometimes communication between the couple is impaired. Some have expectations in a relationship, don't receive it, and look elsewhere instead of communicating to their significant, their needs are not being met. Yeah, undoubtedly. I think Diane shared something with me earlier today about micro cheating, and that flirting online and Facebook and all these little things that may be not true cheating or breaking some level of what you've defined for your boundaries in your relationship, but they're like skirting the edge, if you will, like liking too many photos of someone else and micro cheating, and then not communicating about it and letting the person know.
Is that like microdosing? Like just enough to make me feel
Like, but what does that signify? Is that I think it still can be emotionally, taxing to someone who's in that situation. If you think your partner is kind of doing these things that, technically not cheating, but they're like kind of the impetus to potential cheating, I guess. Or if you add enough of them, maybe it's cheating, but not communicating about it and saying, okay, here's what this means, or here's what the impact is, or how I feel about it. Would you be open to, discussing it and figuring out how do we handle this moving forward? Because social media comes up a lot in my coaching sessions. People are, I see my partner liking this stuff and this stuff. What does that mean? And I'm like, what do you think it means? I think he likes her. Boy, I don't know. I'm like, I'm Coach Kev. Let me check my crystal ball. I think he likes her too. I mean, with social media, there's some new things that are happening in our society, in our, public, this public arena. And, it's one thing to go out, walk in this, public square, and you catch your man or your woman checking somebody out and say, hey, I saw you checking him out. What's that about? And he's like, I saw something. I thought I knew her or whatever. But on social media, Chris, when that happens, how does that come about and communicated so that, I don't know if you have thought.
I think it depends on, I think it goes back to, it depends on kind of what's really going on underneath, right? It's not that there've been a lack of images before. You just found them in Essence magazine. You know what I'm saying? Now you
Right.
find them on social media. But I know couples who they go out together and the one person's like, ooh, and the other person's like, yeah, you're right. That person is pretty tight, and there's laughter around it, right? And so it's not, what are our expectations of our partner? Like, yes, we see things. Yes, we can admire things. Are we in a situation where we feel free to talk about those things with each other?
Right.
Is friendship at the root of our relationship? Or if we try to bring something like that up, like, wow, man, I really like that person's outfit. Does it become kind of a point of contention, an argument, something that then gives me the message, oh, the person I'm with doesn't do so well with me acknowledging things that I observe, right? And then that also starts to look very differently.
Yeah, good point. Good point. So we got more comments and questions. Maybe we start rolling through these. Diane, okay. Well, I saw Casey said some people can work through, not all. Yeah, good point. Patrice, you acknowledge Casey. I hear you. It really depends on the person. Once I experienced it and decided to forgive and give it another chance, I find myself constantly looking over my shoulder, which was not suitable. Yep. Yeah. All right. I don't know if you had anything, Chris, you wanted to chime in on any of these things, but we have a question. Is there a specific definition of cheating? And it's two parts. And is emotional relationships with someone else besides your partner considered cheating?
Well, okay. I don't want to be redundant. I know I kind of spoke to this a little bit already. So Kev, I'm gonna knock this over to you. But I will say that yes, there are different kinds of cheating. But I do think that again, it depends on kind of what you and the person who you're with have established. What exactly are those rules? Because if hanging out with other people who you find attractive is fine, as long as you don't have sex with them, that's a rule for some people in what they consider as their committed relationship, right? Some people are like, you have the one. Once you use your one, that's it. It's not realistic to think that the two of us could be in this committed situation with just each other for the rest of our lives. That's another kind of situation that you find that in that case, that's not technically cheating based on the established rules. So for some, gaining emotional intimacy with someone outside of the relationship, the other partner might be like, ooh, good. Because if I hear about that story about so-and-so one more time, I don't want to hear about all that deep stuff, I'm glad she found so-and-so to, so it really depends on how each couple works. When I say that jokingly, but there is an honesty that I'm speaking to you about the way that what we allow in our relationship is discussed and then honored. And so that will vary. Now, overall, just kind of day to day, can there be emotional cheating? Absolutely. If you find that there is a closeness and intimacy, a connection that's being